As utilities engineers and consultants continue to pursue a digital transformation of their wet infrastructure systems, new cloud based technologies are being implemented, fundamentally changing the way work is done. The rise of the digital twin is generally seen as a benchmark of what many organizations look to pursue. I'm Miles Skoda, and this is the Water Online webinar series. Today, we're talking how bringing the cloud to water is enhancing our infrastructure. Joining me for this presentation are three experts from Innovyze, Principal Product Managers Mike Malone and Peter McIntosh, and Solutions Engineer Tim Medeiros. We'll be taking questions throughout the presentation, so feel free to submit questions as we go along, and we'll get to as many as possible during the Q&A, and any that we can't get to, we'll follow up on after the event. Now, just a couple housekeeping notes. If you run into any issues, please try refreshing your browser first, and if you need additional support, submit a question via the Q&A, and I'll help get you back on track. And then this webinar will be available on demand after about 24 hours, and you'll get an email with the link. Oh, and one last thing, when the webinar ends today, there'll be a survey that'll pop up, and I'm hoping that you can answer the 5 questions just to help me improve our future webinars. So with all that said, I'm going to turn it over to our panel of experts to get started.
Perfect. Thanks, Miles. Thanks for hosting and having us to have a bit of this discussion on the change that we do see is happening when it comes to bring some cloud technologies to water infrastructure and some of the utilities and consultants we have served for quite some time here. All right. So let's see. Yep. All right, perfect. So a little bit on who we are for those of you who may not know. Maybe this is a review for some of you who have been regulars here for Water Online, who have already been around water and heard about Innovyze. But we are Innovyze. We are now an Autodesk company as of roughly about a year ago now. But we've been around for 30 or so years in different forms: HR Wallingford, MWH Soft, again Innovyze. And as you can see, we are a global company. And if you think of how we have progressed in terms of providing water modeling software, it kind of goes left to right here. As you see the black line, we kind of started with master planning modeling with stormwater, sewer, and flood models, water distribution models, and that naturally kind of transitioned into creating solutions that dealt with asset management and operational analytics, which Pete and Mike will be talking a bit about today. So, as we developed and again created solutions for again utilities and consultants of a wide range here, the question kind of naturally came from those models. Hey, it's great that we can see pressure and flow and DORD and capacity of my sewer or water networks, but what about risk? What about my capital improvement project planning? How's that going to look? How am I going to integrate all these other types of non-modeling data to determine what pipes or manholes to replace the next year, 5 years, 10 years, what projects are best? And then similarly with operational analytics, it's great to have a model that can represent, what should be happening over a 72-hour simulation, but how can I make that more live? How can I integrate SCADA data and other live time series data into that model to make it more accurate and keep it up to date a little bit easier here? So the asset management and operational analytics is definitely going to be the focus areas of today, but it's definitely a natural growth of where we've just kind of gone as a company. And then in terms of how we fit into Autodesk, which is a much bigger global software company that I think is used and pretty synonymous with things like CAD and in construction design and things like that all around the world, we kind of bookend a lot of what we see as traditional Autodesk solutions within the civil engineering space. So where Autodesk certainly has expertise when it comes to construction design and in storing those drawings and distributing those, a lot of our solutions are master planning. So what comes before you start to create that water wastewater treatment plant? What's the capacity need to be based on your entire system and your model? And then how do you maintain that new infrastructure, whether it be treatment plants, pipes, again, so many different types of wet infrastructure that you see in many examples here on the screen here. And that's where asset management and operational analytics come in. And so, Innovyze, as we joined Autodesk, we kind of fit this water-shaped hole within the Autodesk kind of portfolio of civil engineering solutions here. All right. So again, just a little bit about us and who we are as part of Autodesk. And for folks that maybe know Innovyze, I just wanted to highlight Autodesk University, which is a new event to us here at Innovyze, and maybe to folks that know our Innovyze solutions as well. But it's a great learning event. It's coming up next month in New Orleans, completely kind of training and customer-driven event, user-driven event, really. It's definitely not a sales conference by any means, but it's really all about technical learning. And if you know Innovyze solutions, you probably have used other civil solutions within Autodesk as well. So this is kind of a two-for-one conference that you could potentially attend and learn a little bit of both. And if you have Autodesk, Innovyze will be featured here as well. So if you can't make it in person, there's a free digital registration, but did just want to bring that to everybody's attention here on the webinar because it is a pretty large and pretty neat event that Autodesk is, again, doing in person for the first time in a while, I think. So with that, that's the end of kind of my slides here. Pete, I'll go to the next slide here and hand it off to you.
All right, thanks, Tim. So as we sort of get into this conversation, I'm going to be focusing my part of this discussion on the operational analytics side. And the focus of like this part of the conversation is, what are you doing with all of your utility data? You have SCADA data, other time series data like limbs. You're hopefully overlaying this data in some form or another with GIS data, incorporating weather data, IoT data like transient pressures or data loggers, any of those things. But how are you using all of this data? How is this helping you operate your utility? How is it helping you monitor your performance? How's it helping you understand things like water loss or non-revenue water? Or on the other side, how is it helping you understand if you have infiltration and inflow? Basically, are you operating within the ranges that you want to operate, or do you even know? Like, do you have even any idea how close to optimal you are operating? So that's really what the OA side of our conversation is going to talk about today. Across utilities, whether distribution or collection, right, you are going to have a lot of varying data sets. In no case have I ever seen anybody have a single data source. You will have like all the ones that I just mentioned before. How are you consolidating these varying data sets into a single view, right? How are you using one vendor's pressure monitors in an IoT sense, along with your SCADA measurements or your SCADA readings for level and flow? Are those all coming into a single analytic solution? If so, how are you doing that? Is it easy? Is it automated? Is it timely? Are the data scrubbed and analytic ready? Or is it, in the second box here, a very cumbersome manual workflow, which is still the dominant case today for people doing any sort of compliance reporting or any sort of system analytic, such as a DMA, non-revenue water analysis. A DMA is a district meter area, by the way, in case you're not familiar with that term. In case a leakage analysis, any of those things. How is that happening? By and large, today we find that more than half of the utilities that we work with are still in a fairly manual approach to getting this type of information. And then, all the way down to software complexities and compliance documentation, right? If you don't have a single point solution that monitors all these things, you're going between databases and Excel and web warehouses, between different providers. We always know that there's lots of data drops and dirty data signals that come in. How are you handling those, making sure that those are not getting included as part of your analytics? And of course, ensuring that those are not influencing any of your compliance reports or or other just even community reports that you may be issuing. So, whoop, there's a built in there. All of these things make some of these issues, right, harder to solve. You know, working in siloed systems is a common, again, it is a common situation that we observe. Working within these disparate solutions, or working across 2 or 3 or 4 different data sources that are not integrated, typically means that you're reacting a lot more than you're proacting, right? You're ultimately letting problems become critical, rather than making sure that you see very gradual drift, and are ahead of the curve. It is often in very disparate solutions to have a collaboration, to have a common operating picture, so that whether you're looking at all of your storage information in a single dashboard, or whether that you're looking at system-wide pressure heat maps, and looking for minor anomalies or perturbations in that, you really do want a single source for that common operating picture, and you really want to ensure that you have quality in these performance metrics, right? You really want to, again, I can't say enough, like, to ensure that the data coming in are clean, are scrubbed, and analytic ready. Dropped values, not number values, any number of things that could come from an instrument reading can throw your analyses off, and can just reduce overall trust in what's coming out of the system. So, the ultimate net benefit, or really the net objective that we're driving towards, is 24/7 reliability, analytic ready, continuity, live, common operating dashboards, common operating pictures, with purpose-built KPI analytics that I'll wind up with before I hand over, in an operational analytics solution. So, we want to talk a little bit about like why cloud is powerful here in this case. In some case, it's really, the utility wants to be agnostic to some sense, in the technology stack. They want to just ensure that it is secure in all times, that it is effectively 100% uptime, that it will be constantly scalable and elastic, and ultimately that it will deliver the information that they want, right? Those are really what the utility wants at the end of the day, or really what any entity wants at the end of the day. The cloud enables us, deploying all this in the cloud enables to check all those 4 boxes with a single solution. It minimizes your IT infrastructure and overhead. It can maximize security, always scalable and elastic, and then really built on top of kind of those key pillars is the actual analytics, the actual platform that is built in a very water-specific, right? Very, very water-specific way, right? I've talked a lot about general business intelligence tools and data analytics, and we certainly recognize there are generic tools out there that do these type of things, like a Power BI or a Tableau. But do they provide the water-specific workflows that you're looking for? Do they integrate with your asset management workflows? Do they integrate with your hydraulic modeling tools? They definitely do not. And if they do, or if there is some way that your utility has made that happen, it's probably through an enormous effort and investment just in localized, single point IT integrations that will have to be maintained and scaled specifically by your IT department. So just talking about a lot of the value props, if you will, around what this platform brings to bear. across insight and asset, right, we sort of have a fluidity of workflows here. Just to touch a little bit on what the asset stuff is, and Mike's going to follow on with a lot more detail on this, is it is going to streamline your asset inspection process, and it is going to increase the return on investment for the inspections that you do, especially with regards to maintenance and capital planning. It's going to help justify your decisions and improve your asset planning. It's going to consolidate your data and your processes into a single environment so that you can see within a specific DMA or a specific catchment area what your infrastructure looks like from an inspection standpoint, and if that correlates to infiltration or if that correlates to leakage or water loss. Having these in a single solution allows you to simplify your reporting and to have live common operating pictures, and just ultimately optimizes the level of service that you provide throughout your utility to all of your stakeholders. By monitoring your performance with these live systems, sharing these in a common operating picture, it ultimately helps you better assess and prioritize, based on these KPIs that we deliver, where you will want to emphasize activities, whether maintenance or planning activities within your utility. All of this is really designed to kind of paint that picture of like what has happened, what is happening, and what's going to happen, so that you, the end user, are basically in a proactive stance, not a reactive stance. So the type of workflows that we want to help our users optimize include things like, we do want to help you predict service failures. We want you to be ahead of the curve in terms of if there is a small burst or just a small leak, not letting that get to a large burst or a very large disruptive leak where people may be out of water, or we may have catastrophic flooding, on some part of your network somewhere. I see at least once a year in our metro area, at least one utility having a catastrophic burst, which it doesn't just mean water loss to people, it also means roads shutting down, very expensive repairs. You've all been there. We've all seen it in the news. Using these to, if you can, reduce pumping costs and cycle your pumps in the most optimal way. Also to ensure that you're managing pressure and water quality, to ensure that this common operating picture is looking where you may have minor system disruptions, acting quickly before it's a major system disruption. Really the same concepts in the collection systems, trying to allow you to predict and reduce overflows, to predict and manage flooding, reduce pumping costs when you can. Of course, with large weather events, you're going to be pumping whether you want to or not. But there are times where you can better manage these things based on time of day and tariff rates. And again, right, using this common operating picture, what has happened, what is happening, and to help so that you can help optimize your utility around what is going to happen. We're not talking a whole lot today on the modeling, the simulation, right, the forecasting side of the workflows. We will defer that to another webinar. It's just from a time perspective, we have the ability to do that. But just know, right, that's kind of the whole end-to-end equation that we're talking about in this platform. So I'll wind up with this slide, and then I'm going to hand off to my colleague Mike here and say, just to recap what we're talking about, this is the pathway to the digital twin. This is, to repeat myself again, this is the what has happened, what is happening, and what is going to happen aspect of your utility, from data collection, data monitoring, KPI analysis, into your forecasting tools. Right? This is about helping you operate, maintain, and optimize your assets across the water life cycle, about helping you monitor and optimize your KPIs like non-revenue water or infiltration and inflow, minimizing both of those, and ensuring that you have the most living, dynamic, predictable system that you possibly can to have the most optimal service levels that you can deliver to all of your constituents. I'll let Mike take the reins for a minute here, and then I'll grab him back in a few.
Yeah, thanks, Pete. Hey, everyone. Another product manager here at Autodesk, Mike Malone, presenting to you now, and then Pete's going to grab back the screen here when we get into some of our product-specific content. So, we've talked a lot about the digital twin. We've talked a lot about our Info360 platform, and what we really want to do now is round out the conversation into, okay, what solutions are we actually delivering on top of this platform? Being in the industry and kind of seeing what a lot of others are out there doing and kind of pitching out to the market, I think a big differentiator for Autodesk and Innovyze and Info360 is that we're not only building the platform that will enable your digital twin, we're also delivering solutions on top of it that can help you do your job better today across all these different industries that all these different segments of the industry that we've had tools in before. So kind of starting at the top here, right? If you've known Innovyze for a long time, and Tim kind of alluded to this at the beginning of the call, but we've had industry-leading storm sewer flood products and water distribution products from a modeling perspective for a long time. Best in the market, best of breed for sure, for the longest time. We also have operational analytics and artificial intelligence tools that we've brought online over the past, I'll say, 3 to 5 years. And I'm talking in terms of kind of desktop applications in the past. We have our info drainage products for drainage design and SUDS. And we have asset management products as well with our info asset series. So those all kind of lived in the desktop realm and we're, again, industry leader products for the last 20, 30 years, depending on which products we're talking about. What we're looking to do and are starting to actually deliver on is move a lot of these workflows to a cloud-based system so that many different users and personas at the utility or at consultants working with utilities can leverage specific tools that help support all these 5 workflows that we lay out here. So whether you want to incorporate machine learning models, you're trying to manage risk for your asset network, you are doing drainage design, you want to build cloud-based simulations, you are doing hydraulic modeling, all these workflows are supported within Info360, and we're just continuing to deliver solutions on top of these. So today, we're specifically going to focus on the first 2 products, which are Info360 Insight, which is our operational analytics business intelligence tool that's purpose-built for utilities, and then our asset management and Info360 Asset product. So we launched the Info360 platform, just for a timeline for everyone, in January of 2021. Insight came out shortly thereafter, a month or 2 after that, and then Info360 Asset we launched in beta in the summer of 2021 and then out as a commercially available product last year at Autodesk University in October. So very rapidly innovating on top of this platform and building out our customer base across these specific use cases. So we're going to hone in on these 2 products today, but just keep in mind that you'll see these boxes continue to grow as well as we move along through our various workflows. Okay, so just touching back to the platform and talking about some of the data that we can connect to and kind of some of the main workflows we're looking to support. So whether it's data coming in from your SCADA system, it's time series data, it's connecting to your GIS, live weather data, quality data, customer complaints, right? All this data can come into the platform, be aggregated together, and then served up to various users for various jobs to be done that support different use cases. So we're not only aggregating all the data on the right side here and making it available, we're also building purpose-built tools for various users at the utility that serve up this data and help them get the specific answer that they're looking for to do their job better. Okay, and before I pass it back to Pete on the Insight, for a deep dive into Insight, and then we'll round out with Asset, just one last comment on kind of our SaaS platform. So we built Info360 on top of AWS. So it's our SaaS platform. It has a microservice framework, which allows us to be kind of infinitely scalable and elastic. So we can, we have, high performance simulations. We have the ability to handle very, very large quantities of data and display the answers from that data to the user in either a report or on a map. All that can scale out to the largest of the utilities, but also be really easy to get started with and pick up, because it's a SaaS solution for some of the smaller customers out there. So we're really looking to serve the entire market, top to bottom. Integration across business areas. It's all built on a modern web platform. So we have APIs and the ability to integrate out to your other business systems that are out there today, as well as integrating within the platform, so that your modelers can start talking to your asset managers, who can start talking to your operators, because all the data is interconnected. As with most cloud products, but I think we do a really good job of it, faster deployment, real-time product updates. So we do weekly releases. Some of them are really small. Some of them are kind of big launches of new functionality out to our customers. But all the products that we build on Info360, we're able to ship features out to customers in real time, because again, we're built on a modern SaaS platform. So if you are one of the users of our two products we've launched so far today, or to date, you'll notice that if you've used the products over a period of time, they're very rapidly changing and just getting more and more valuable as we go along. Okay, and then I'll just focus quickly on the last bullet here. So we want the utility to be focused on the jobs that they need to do, optimizing operations, optimizing their capital planning and O&M planning, not on the IT and software behind it. We want a user to be able to log in, connect to their data, get the necessary permissions to our applications, and start getting value out of it immediately. Not, set up a server, have a bunch of on-prem software that they have to worry about licensing and setting up optimally. We just want to handle all that for you and let you get the answers out of the tools. Okay, so with that, I'm going to give it back to Pete for a deep dive into Insight, and then again, we'll hop back into asset management with me to close it out.
All right, thanks, Mike. Okay, so we'll just do a quick overview of the OA workflows. Let me try and get this video queued up here. So what we're talking about in this SaaS application, very industry specific for water, is to show these purpose-built KPIs and custom analytics that help you manage, mitigate things like water loss, leakage, minimize your energy costs. As we're looking here at this animation, right, these are all across unified dashboards for easy handoff between operators. And it's also designed to be at-a-glance views for all stakeholders with the intent of making reporting, communication, decision management really simple from a day-to-day task, and really reliable and trustworthy from an ongoing assessment. So let's see, I want to make sure I'm not going ahead here. The animations, bear with me, guys. These animations are interesting. So we want to also ensure that this is a common data experience across your organization. That this is an easy to use web interface. Like Mike was talking about, you don't want to worry about software uploads. You don't want to worry about version monitoring. You don't want to worry about computer uptime. And you don't really want to worry about who in the organization has what software on their machine at any given time, right? So whether you're an operator, an engineer, whether you're management, whether you're finance, any operator in the utility really benefits from access to this. And here's really a key piece too, is that this is very much designed to give full access at your discretion to consultants who are doing workflows for your organization, right? So consultants can come in and set up any of these complex system analytics, can configure your pressure zones or DMAs so that you get the reporting that you want at like sub levels of your utility. And that they can also work with these tools across the model calibration workflows. All these designed by design, right, to be fully integrated. We want to talk about workflows for rapid and optimal resolution, right? Integrated workflows that tie together both these analytics and modeling data fed by direct data connections so that I can bring in my modeling data and predict if I am going to have certain levels of service disruptions based on part of a system isolation. This kind of minimizes the back and forth between your modeling teams and between your planning or engineering or operations teams, so that an operator could fairly quickly come in and say, hey, if I want to shut down these 3 valves, isolate a pipe, I'm probably going to have them shut down for 6 to 8 hours. Do I anticipate service disruptions? How many people? Who is it specifically going to be? What's my 24-hour time horizon going to be? And let me get a list of those people quickly so that I can proactively reach out to them in terms of predicted service disruptions. And then I sort of want to circle back here, right? When we're talking about the future of your utility, like this is like my sort of go-to point here is this common operating picture, right? A common data environment, a common data warehouse. A common view for all stakeholders. So your finance team, if necessary, can come in and look at your non-revenue water and can very quickly assess, from a budget standpoint, what that's costing you. Your ops and planning teams can identify any of these KPIs in context. Can I understand how my non-revenue water is at a zonal level, right? If I have zone 3 and I have zone 5, and my non-revenue water in zone 3 is from a relative standpoint 5 times worse than zone 5, but from an absolute standpoint, it's still a fraction of zone 5, right? This helps me prioritize my decision making within the utility, and it keeps everybody on the same page. It keeps everybody with open eyes on everything that is happening in your utility. And this also allows your engineering and planning teams to take this current real-time operating picture and integrate it into planning workflows. So they can bring in from our tool set, from Info 360, they can bring in all of your boundary set points, diurnal patterns, you name it. Run their high-powered desktop models with this information and get the most reliable futuristic outcomes. And then really at the end is just to talk about how we make compliance reports relatively easy, right? The integrated workflows that we have tie together analytics with a collection of disparate data connections. I think my animations are off here. Based on what I'm seeing, I will just forge ahead. That we are determining the best resolution scenario based on regulatory compliance, and that data are export ready, analytic ready, scrubbed, clean, and managed to provide you very reliable, very accurate, and really kind of at a click compliance reporting. Like you don't necessarily have to go and download 18 different data sets, get them into a spreadsheet, make sure that they're mapping to the right pages with 87 different macros. We've all been there. You all know what it looks like. Wouldn't it be nice if you could just come in the morning and say, give me my weekly water analysis report, or my just build out my EPA, my local EPA, monthly operating report from a compliance standpoint. So what we're talking about from some key features in Info360 Insight is the mass balance, showing us zonal or global usage, and can provide you non-revenue water volume as a percent or as an absolute value, provided that you're giving it either your AMI or your billing data. We can derive infrastructure leakage index, which is a metric originally prototyped through the EPA that uses the number of lengths and mains, pressure, number of connections, incorporates all the information from the mass balance to give you leakage indices, your pattern analyses so that you get diurnal patterns, usage patterns. That's helpful for monitoring and planning. Customizable tools, I'll just sort of get some tool examples in the next slide, but this is by design, a very customizable and configurable approach to building some of the KPIs. Fully live and built-in alerting system. We certainly recognize that you get plenty of alerts from your SCADA system, and we don't just want to give you a bunch more alerts of the same information, but this allows you to provide more meta alerts that can say, if my pressure and my flow at a certain point reach levels together, then I could alert an operator that say, hey, there may be something more that you want to look into here than just a raw SCADA alarm that can be easy to tune out because we get so many of them. And then integrated with system simulations, the ability to assess criticality when I do have to make system modifications using my simulation tools. If I have to do shutdowns, if I have to do system management, what potential impact could come out of that, and make those in really easy to use in the Info360 context, really easy to use, more operator focused tools. They don't have to be experts at the simulation tools. And they don't have to, go down the hall and ask the simulation person to drop what they're doing, the engineering people to drop what they're doing, and go make this analysis for them. So when I talked about some of the custom analytics, and I'll wind up with this slide and hand over to the asset team, what are we talking about in those custom analytic workflows? So we have talked several times about non-revenue water, both persistent, percentage-wide, and absolute. What is it at a DMA level, and what is it system-wide? Anybody watching the news, lately can't not have seen some drought somewhere on the planet, whether it's Europe, North America, Australia, you name it. Making sure that we're not losing water in our distribution systems is going to be increasingly relevant with every passing day. And then just to not dive deep on all these, because we'll be here forever, we got things like the leakage indices they talked about. What are your minimum nightly flows? Right? You don't even have to do anything. It's at a click. You don't even have to set up or build any system custom analytic. This is going to give you what your baseline water flow looks like at a glance, real time, always available. On your collection systems, you've got your infiltration and inflow monitoring that we can do, measuring relative to daily, weekly, seasonal trends, incorporating rain flows and groundwater, whether you have measurements or whether we make some meta measurements around these things to get to that type of information. If you're a collection system, you don't want to be moving water around. You shouldn't be moving water around, right? You just want to be focused on your clean or your your stormwater or your sanitary systems and keeping these things running at optimal level. And so on and so forth, right? This is just sort of a sample list I threw together. There's probably 15, 20 more off the top of my head that I could talk about. It's really just kind of what's most important to your utility and the type of KPIs that help you ensure optimal performance and optimal management across your system in a very living, very scalable system. Now we will see where the asset.
Oh, I jumped ahead.
Sorry about that.
Pete. No worries. Cool. So yeah, let's go through some of the key functionality for Info360 Asset, the second product we launched on Info360. So asset management is a very kind of broad term that can cover a lot of different use cases. So I really wanted to focus in on what Info360 Asset does and is focused on kind of our initial launch of it and the subsequent features we released since then. So Info360 Asset really focuses on some key workflows. One is managing inspections on your assets, assessing the condition of your assets, both inspected assets and assets that are not inspected. It helps you create an accurate picture of risk. So we have risk analysis tools that incorporate all the inspection data and other data you can use to get a clear picture of risk for your network assets. And it also helps you build a prescriptive rehab plan based on all that incoming data. So if you think about data that we use in Info360 Asset, it's your network assets coming in from your GIS. It's all the inspections on those assets. It's other geospatial data that you want to use. And then we provide a tool set on top of that to do all of the analytics that are necessary to get, again, that in the end, that prescriptive, what should I do with this asset? When should I do it? How much is it going to cost so that I can ultimately mitigate failures and unplanned maintenance on our network? Okay, so I'm just going to click through a couple kind of animated slides here and talk to what you're seeing. So really the first core use case Info360 Asset is breaking down the data silos and getting all the latest up-to-date information out to all stakeholders. So again, web applications, anybody with a login can come in and view all of the inspection data, all the asset data, the asset condition, the risk scores, and the rehabilitation actions that are assigned to the assets all in one collaborative environment. So this first screen that we're showing here is the PACP. So if you're familiar with the NASCO standard in North America, PACP is pipeline inspections that follow the NASCO standard for scoring and collection. And so those can be uploaded into Info360 Asset, either from users in the field or from users within the utility or the consultant working with the utility. And the users can then view the status of those inspections. They can see the video. They can see all the defects that were collected along the pipe. So this all becomes available in a single source of truth web application. And here's just a kind of example of that data being shown here. So a user clicks on a pipe. They go to view the details of that pipe. They can see the condition scores. They can see the risk scores. And they can also see the video from the CCTV inspection and all the individual defects that occurred on the pipe. They can drill in as far as they want on those assets. They can approve the inspection. They can reject it, et cetera. So kind of first core workflow is let's get the latest inspection on these pipe or manhole assets into Info360, and let's generate a condition score that can be used to create a more accurate picture of risk and ultimately assign a rehab action to them. Okay, so then we get into the risk modeling piece where you can use all these different data sources, starting with the condition of your pipes that were a result of those inspections or surveys taking place. But you can also use things like attributes coming in from your GIS layer. So if you want to look at pipe age or material, installed by all the different fields that you collect within your GIS for all of your kind of metadata about those assets can all be used. We also have built-in spatial analysis tools where you can do analysis such as proximity to critical facilities or proximity to highly traveled roads or perhaps environmentally sensitive habitats or areas. All that can be brought into your likelihood and consequence of failure analysis. So what you're seeing here in the animation is someone building out a risk model. So they have different categories that they want to include in their likelihood of failure model. So they're looking at the structural score and the O&M score, and they're building really a fully customizable picture of risk for their specific business needs to give them the most accurate picture of risk and how it affects them. So they're going to combine LOF and COF. They're going to create kind of a weighted system to combine those two data points and then ultimately generate a risk score for each asset. And then lastly here, we have our rehabilitation decision tree capability. And this is where you're actually getting a prescriptive action and cost for doing a renewal, a repair, or replacement to assets within your network. So all this data that we've brought in, whether it's inspections, it's condition scores, it's attributes on the asset, it's the spatial location, the risk score, all these can be used and put through a workflow so that each asset can flow through this diagram you're seeing here on the right. And if it returns true based on all the data that you're querying, it goes down one path. If it's false, it goes down the other path. And ultimately, you're getting to a specific action that you want to apply to each asset. So you can build a very sophisticated model here to make sure that you're doing the exact right action at the right cost at the right time on the right asset. So think about this as like a SQL query builder with a really easy to use, user-friendly front end built on top of it. In this example, they're querying the COF score and saying it's greater than a specific value, able to save that and add it to their query, and then save that as a node in the canvas. Okay, so out of this, again, you get a specific action per asset, you get a cost associated with that action, and you get a collaborative environment for everyone to go view that information. You can also set up scenarios and have different rehab actions based on different timeframes or different configurations you want to put into your rehab tree. So very flexible, but also very easy to use. Okay, so won't read through all these available on the website, but key features that we've built into Info360 Asset. The coding of defects, assessing risk using LOF and COF, as I showed earlier. Interpreting those risk results and presenting them to any stakeholder just within that web application, reviewing all the defects coming in from that CCTV upload coming in from the field, connecting to and bringing in your GIS or other tabular data you want to associate with your assets. So again, it's a single source of truth to represent your, the digital twin view into your asset. You can get prescriptive rehab actions within the application, and ultimately, this is a real-time system, right? So as the data changes that comes in, those risk models and rehab decisions and actions are going to change. It's a living, breathing view into the current condition and state of your network. Okay, so that was our last slide. We have about 12 minutes left to go through any questions that had come in. So I'm going to pass it back.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. Again, also thanks, Tim and Pete. Some great stuff there. So we've got a good amount of questions in. So guys, if you see anything great here, let me know. I'm flipping through them. So I see one here. Pete, I think this one might be for you. Someone's asking, can 360 help me with managing my infrastructure during a natural disaster like a tornado, and in what way?
Yeah, I've been trying to answer these in real time as best I can as well. But from a natural disaster standpoint, we are going to certainly be able to show you all of your system operations, leading up to and during that event. If you've got our simulation tools or any industry simulation tools, right, you could certainly try to use those to predict what may happen under these fairly extreme conditions. So for example, tornadoes notoriously difficult. You don't know the path of the tornado really until it happens. So we can't say, right, if you're going to have a water source come offline, or if you're going to have, some key pipes break, as a result of this. But we certainly can give you real-time diagnostics and real-time KPIs throughout this event. Now, if we're talking about, threats and threat prevention and prediction, that really is just out of the scope of what our tooling does today.
Yeah.
Someone
perfect.
asked
Thanks.
about, I'll just sort of
Go ahead.
jump in here. About AMI is one big topic that's certainly worth touching on, and about various methods for leak analysis and leak prevention. So AMI is something I'm very excited about. We see it more and more. And the idea is that, basically having smart meters everywhere is going to give you a much more intelligent system. The downside to AMI, right, is just the volume of data, or can be the volume of data. So I think just having data aggregation with AMI is really the sweet spot in your system. AMI is going to allow you to much more accurately pinpoint loss or leakage in your system obviously from a distribution standpoint. We are plug and play, if you will, with AMI systems. Right. Again, we're a centralized data warehouse, so we can take that AMI and use it directly within our workflows today. And we recommend it. We love it. I realize that getting a full AMI system is a journey for a utility, but right, using all those data sources is only going to provide you more accurate spatial and quantitative indices for loss and leakage in your system. So the other thing around leakage or loss, right? If you don't have AMI, or if you're on the journey to getting to full AMI, is of course acoustic sounders is one of the more common things that people will go out and just try to listen for leaks. That's a little bit of a needle in a haystack, right? You're gonna want to try to maybe find a better way to prioritize where you're gonna want to do that. If you already know or suspect that you've got some leak somewhere in your system, you can go out there and trace along lines and look for that. But you're not gonna just want to go out blank slate and say, let's go try and find leaks without that. I'm sure I'm preaching to the choir on this. But by design, our system and the concept of DMAs, and of course working with AMI, is going to really sort of make that journey a lot easier. The district media area concept really just emphasizes that you have your system broken down into zones, and that your zones can be either virtually or physically isolatable through valve configurations, and that your inputs and outputs just from a water flow standpoint into and out of a zone. And so using, the more you have this broken down into zones, the more you're going to be very enabled to pinpoint loss or leakage in your system. The downside, right, or the necessity of having DMAs is you do have to have kind of that physical, or at least semi-physical virtual infrastructure to know inputs, outputs, and the storage part within a zone is generally pretty easy. But you're gonna need to know that, and that's either through basically through mains or large lines into and out of, and having sensors at those boundaries. That is something that especially in North America, right, we don't have as evolved systems around these DMAs. But anybody on the asset improvement journey in their utility, I would certainly recommend that incorporating DMA infrastructure into your asset improvement workflows or capital planning should be a strong consideration as you are, looking towards a more digital twin future.
Thanks, Pete. That's
probably
perfect.
a long answer.
No, I think you covered a good amount of the questions there, so that was great. We've got just a couple minutes left, so I'm gonna toss this last one up to Mike real quick. We've got a couple more popping in too. So Pete, if you do see one of these that looks good, let me know. If not, remember, we are saving all the questions, so I'll pass them along to the rest of the team here, and they'll get you a follow-up if it's very specific or something like that. Mike, I've got a question for you. Somebody asked early on here, basically they're saying, how does me as a customer get access to Info 360?
All right, found my mute button. Yeah, thanks, Miles. Yeah, so this is we touched on this earlier, it's a software as a service platform, which has specific products within it that you can subscribe to. So it's as easy as, obviously signing up for subscription through Autodesk, but then really, within a Chrome browser, right, you're going to get an email to get invited to the system. You'll connect to your subscription and get up and running right away. These are available as annual subscriptions. I won't get into specifics on pricing or anything like that. We could certainly work with anybody who has those questions in the future. But yeah, it's an annual subscription, software as a service. It includes access to the software, updates, support, etc. So again, trying to remove that whole kind of shorten the time to value for customers, right? Remove the whole kind of setup and install process that has kind of plagued customers on the desktop side for a long time. But yeah, good question.
All right, I think that's great, Mike. So I think with that, we're going to wrap up here. I do see a couple more questions come in, and Pete is responding to them. So those are kind of specific, so we're just gonna move on from there. Again, if you do have any more questions, my contact information and along with Mike's, Pete, and Tim are in the sidebar where you're kind of looking for the speakers. It should be off to your left. Click on any of those. You can email us, send us a message if you want to ask anything. In addition, there's some resources on the page as well. One reminder, there's going to be a survey that's going to pop up right when we finish up here. So just if you could answer those 5 questions, we'd really appreciate it, and it's going to help us improve our future webinars. So with all that said, audience members, thank you all for joining us. We really appreciate your time, and to our presenters today, we really appreciate you guys being here as well. So everybody have a great rest of your day, and we will see you next time. Bye, everybody.